Do you think there is also a little bit of a racism when it comes to hiring a candidate?
Oh my God, 100%. One of the most disturbing, I would say, stats around is around what name you use to apply for jobs and callbacks. The number one skill that I fundamentally believe is going to be a gap in the next 2 to 3 years in the job market isn't AI, it's not technology, it's actually
Emily Durham,
also known as Emily the Recruiter,
is a top Canadian recruiter
and a career coach,
transforming careers of millions of people worldwide.
What are the 3 things that you should never say in an interview?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would avoid saying is anything negative about your former employer or your boss, even if they deserve it. The secret sauce right now isn't what you know, it's who you know. Start networking even before you start applying for jobs.
What about the people who are like a little bit introvert?
Yeah, I think being noticed doesn't mean being the loudest.
In diversity hire, do you think is Canada better than US Canada?
Oh, it's all so bad.
Both are bad. Scams.
The scams go crazy. I don't think people realize how many fake job postings there actually are.
The unemployment rate is the highest in the last 8 years or so.
Yeah, 6.8% is
6.8%.
disturbing.
How should people negotiate about their salaries?
Never accept the first offer. You are always leaving money on the table. The most powerful negotiation tool in the world is your The biggest misconception we have about interviews is that we're meant to be humble. No, you're meant to be braggadocious. If you're in an interview and you do not know the answer to a question,
Now I think I would be ready for an interview.
I'm excited. I think we'll get people paid this year. That's the goal.
So do I get a job?
You're hired.
Oh, yes. All right. Excited for today.
It's happening. I'm
It's
so
finally-
excited.
Welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me. I'm loving it. Like, this is the ideal way to spend a day. I'm into it.
It's snowing outside. We are cozy inside. This is amazing.
It's very winter vibes. We're going to bring the heat, but it's very winter vibes. I love it.
I'm really excited for this conversation because I think this podcast is going to be really helpful for somebody who's looking to get a job in 2025. Not just getting a job, but I also feel that somebody who's looking to, upgrade their skill set or looking for a pay rise, maybe, switch another job or anything. 2025 is going to be a big life event for a lot of people.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Well, I think 2024, and I don't know if this is a universal experience, but so many people and like my clients I've spoken to this year have felt like this was a very wait and see year. Like we were kind of waiting to see what was happening with the economy, with the job market. And I think we're now starting to see, even from a labor market perspective, like a bit more steadying of what the job market looks like. So I feel like we have a much better sense of what 2025 expectations are versus last year. Like heading into 2024, I was like, well, we're just going to vibe it out, guys. Like we're just going to work together and we're going to get there. And I think this year, because we've had like steadier data, we're seeing more steady patterns. I think we actually have the information we need to succeed and not just get a job, but get the right job and know how. So I'm excited. I think we'll get people paid this year. That's the goal.
That is the goal. Before we get into the weeds, I want to say I really, really love your content.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was consuming it like I was working out yesterday and I was listening to your podcast. You have a section like, what would Emily do?
Absolutely.
And you know what? I've had that section also inside. So we are going to ask 3 questions in that
I
segment
love
as
that.
well.
That's so sweet. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Yeah, amazing. So what I was thinking that, this podcast, I want it to be a masterclass for somebody who's looking for a job, right? So we'll start from a beginning level, like somebody who could be a new immigrant or could be just right out of the college and looking for a job. So we'll start from there. Like a lot of people are coming to Canada. They are in Canada now. Now, what should be the first step of finding a job?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think if you were to have asked me that like 4 years ago, I'd have a very different response because what we were always told and taught growing up either was nothing, and then you would just have to figure things out, or it was that if you have a really good resume and you work really hard and you apply for a job, you're going to be fine. Okay, that's all right. That's not happening anymore, right? The biggest challenge right now isn't having a perfect resume because we live in a world with ChatGPT and with AI. You can have a great cover letter. You can have a great resume. The secret sauce right now isn't what you know, it's who you know. So if you are fresh out of school, new to a country, first thing you're going to do is the basics, right? So we're going to get your resume, your cover letter, which by the way, no one's going to read. So don't spend too much time on it. Leave it be. Focus on getting your paper altogether. So your resume, your cover letter, if it's necessary for your industry, specifically if you're in finance and consulting, anything else, don't lose sleep over it, and update your LinkedIn. The stuff that's important there is It's not about having things crystal and perfect. Like, it's really not about you having the perfectly written bio, a perfectly written, cover letter. Go to ChatGPT, use that as an anchor, and then personalize. So tip number one, from like a paperwork perspective, if you want to stand out, you can't sound like you're using all of the tools and technology everyone else is using. That's step one. Step two is then networking. I would say start networking even before you start applying for jobs. Everyone seems to think networking is transactional and it's awful and that it's like, very much asking for people for favors. Yeah, and what about it? That's okay. You are allowed to leverage the tools and the systems around you to get ahead, because if you don't, someone else is going to. Reach out to people cold on LinkedIn. Reach out to people in your network. Go on Facebook groups, newcomers to Ontario, newcomers to Alberta. See who's in there. Grab coffee with these people. And then your call to action is going to be referrals or them connecting you to other people in your network. And at that point, when you get a flavor of, okay, these are the companies I have some pull in, that's when you start applying. And after you apply, you reach out to those friends and say, hey, pal, had a great coffee with you last month. I applied for a job at your company. Do you know who's running that hiring process? Like, end to end, if I was looking for a job tomorrow, that's exactly what I'm doing.
I think most of the people are also very shying away from even sending the first message.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what to send as a message.
It's true.
So what do you recommend for that?
Yeah, don't overthink it. I think the first thing you need to do is deconstruct, why are you feeling this way? Like, why are you so scared to ask for help and take up space? Because if that were you in a senior leadership position, I can guarantee you wouldn't feel upset that someone reached out asking for help, because at one point you needed that. So adopt that mindset shift and realize it's a little cheesy, but I stand by it. Nothing that's for you is missing you. So if they don't respond to your message, good, someone else is going to. So you need to really reframe your mindset. As far as what you're actually going to say, you don't need LinkedIn Premium. That's not necessary. Okay. Short and sweet. What you're going to say is, hey, I'm Emily. I'm a senior recruiter. I work in tech. I noticed you work at Google as a talent manager. I'd love to connect and learn more about your career. Everything that we know about human psychology tells us that people love talking about themselves. So you're not reaching out and saying, oh, can you help me get a job? Can you review my resume? That might be your intention.
Yes.
Keep it to yourself. What you're going to do is say, I'd love to learn about you. Make the first conversation all about them. And at the end, you get to say, by the way, you're so intelligent. Can I pick your brain about something? And that's when you make your ask.
So basically come from a value standpoint rather than just coming directly and asking about something like, can we grab a coffee?
Yes, it's like a date. Like, you wouldn't walk up to a cutie patootie on the street and go, can I take you for dinner right now? And this is clearly why I'm a much better recruiter than a dater, because you wouldn't walk up to a stranger and go, oh my gosh, let's go for dinner right now. No, you got to get some preliminary information. Are you single? Where do you live? What do you like to do? You got to schmooze a little. And recruitment
so it's like
is the
dating.
same. Yes, but so much less fun.
We need it. That is why we're going to do it.
Exactly. So send that first message. Be bold. The worst thing someone is ever going to tell you is no, and then nothing changes. Okay. Then we send another. Like, that kind of fail fast mindset in your job search is, in my opinion, what really protects people from burnout, because in today's job market, we are going to be told no 9 times and told yes 1. So we really need to build that resilience muscle to kind of keep that going.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel that LinkedIn is one platform where you could begin doing that. Do you think Instagram could also be one of the places or not?
I have mixed feelings about Instagram. I think it's really industry specific, because a lot of people who are using Instagram to promote like their businesses or their services typically aren't formally affiliated with the company they work at. And a lot of companies, if they do allow people to post on social media, really don't want them flaunting what company they work at. So reaching out to say, hey, can you send me a referral? Can I connect with you? It's probably not going to hit the way you think it's going to hit. So I would steer away from it unless you have someone who's clearly openly inviting that. I think keep it safe, keep it LinkedIn.
I think from a business perspective, I've seen that Instagram working better in that case. Like if you're a business owner, if you're in service business or anything, then you're able to get into the DMs, you can have a conversation about it. But you're right about, like, when it comes to job finding and, having that kind of a conversation where, you can work in some company, then LinkedIn would be a better choice.
I would agree. I think LinkedIn is much safer unless you're targeting like a very specific company that maybe is like at startup stage or is really heavily leaning on social media. Like, I think of Poppy as a brand, right? You want to work at marketing at Pop or in marketing at Poppy. I think DMing Poppy isn't a bad idea. That's a brand that's very digital marketing first. You want to work at BMO Capital Markets. I would say maybe don't DM people you found on Instagram. That maybe is not the route we want to take.
Yeah. And what other ways that people can find, what are the other platforms where people can find jobs?
Yeah, so I think there's a really big misconception about where jobs live. Actually, I have a hot take first I need to share. I think before we even get into where things are posted, I don't think people realize how many fake job postings there actually are.
The scams.
The scams go crazy. So you've got scams where people are like actually trying to scam you out of money. So first things first, whatever website you are going to, if they're asking for money in any capacity, wrong, bad. We are not moving forward with them. Like that's done. The second thing is if you have jobs that have been posted 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, chances are most times, those are companies that are actually either quietly doing layoffs or restructures and keeping those postings up to make it look like they're hiring. So like those are two things just to keep aware of. But as far as where you're applying, it doesn't really matter. They're all going to the same place. So whether it's LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever platform you're using, it all goes to the same place. If I was looking, and what I tell my clients, if I'm looking for a job immediately, pick the platform that's most accessible to you. I firmly believe LinkedIn and Indeed are some of the best. I'm a big believer in joining community-specific job boards. So if you're a product manager in Toronto, there are so many amazing communities specific to that. Join those. If you're a woman in STEM, there are organizations.
Where are those communities again?
So you know what? There's different ones for each, but go online and even if you look at Eventbrite, that's another great hack. Yeah, Eventbrite is awesome. To say like, women in marketing conference, there'll be 2 or 3 a year. Then there's a WhatsApp group, a Facebook page. You've got one more platform to get in there. And identifying with your community. Like for women, there's amazing groups. For Black talent, there's like a Be Future conference that happens every year. So really tap into your community. But if you're thinking about like logistics, what's happening the fastest, high volume, high accuracy applications. So roles that are a good fit for you online and then flagging your application is the best way to go about it.
And do you also think that there is a specific template that you need to follow in terms of a resume when you're building your resume?
You know what? I have one I prefer. It does depend on your industry. So I think if you are in what I like to call a traditional industry, so think consulting, think banking, think government, let's keep your resume unbelievably simple. I've got like the 3 pillars I think of when it comes to a resume. The first is having a solid design. So the actual flow of your resume should have, and this is for any level, like you could be fresh out of school, you can be an executive. I still want you to do this. Name nice and big at the top, little executive summary if that floats your boat. So 2 to 3 sentences, get ChatGPT to do it for you. You don't need to do that yourself. Your work experience, then your education, because your education at the top screams, I just graduated. Education at the bottom screams, I've done this before. And then you do some of your fun tidbits. So your volunteer experience, maybe you've, coached some courses, whatever that might be. A page to 2 pages maximum. That's our flow.
So it could be 2 pages as well?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
For a fresher?
I still think it's fine. The only way I would say to take it above 1 page is if you actually have content on there that's valuable.
Yeah, just don't fill it out.
Don't say things just to say things. Yeah. So really having that format. The next pillar is the details that you're writing with. So the format for your resume should be 4 to maybe 5 bullet points for each work experience, tying into the third pillar, which is data. So you need to have at least 2 data points under each of those work experiences for your resume to matter. You can have fun with the visuals of your resume if you're in marketing, if you're in something kind of funky and creative. Just be careful though, because applicant tracking systems don't like fun. So you need to keep it at least a little simple.
And some of the resumes that I've also seen also have some pictures of the candidate. Do you think people should also put their pictures?
Honestly, they look great. They're serving. I love them. Take them off. I personally think they're so fun. I think it's great to put a face to a name. The challenge is I would love for us to operate in a world where we're assuming best intent, right? But the reality is we operate in a world where discrimination is rampant, both from like a race, age, gender, religion perspective. You giving information about how you present yourself automatically opens you up to that. And I'd love to tell you that companies will do the right thing. Unfortunately, that historically has not been the case. So take off markers of age, try to keep your resume as like simple and one-dimensional as possible.
Do you think there is also a little bit of a racism when it comes to hiring a candidate?
Oh my God, 100%. Without a doubt. There are so many stats to back this up, and I'll probably butcher the data now. One of the most popular and one of the most disturbing, I would say, stats around is around what name you use to apply for jobs and callbacks.
Yes.
It's pretty disturbing. So there was a study that came out, and I believe it was US based, where there was a group of individuals who applied for the exact same jobs, same resume. Like nothing has changed on their resume except for their name. So you get a white presenting name and then a black presenting name or sounding name. And the callbacks, I believe, doubled or tripled when they were white sounding names. So like mass racism in the actual filtration process. You also have to remember a lot of companies are now using AI to filter resumes. Where does AI get its data? The internet. Who has predominantly contributed to a lot of the norms we see on the internet? White people. Like that's a problem. Sorry, guys. Like that is the roots of how we evaluate, I think, are inherently rooted in racism, and capitalism is rooted in racism. So that could be a whole episode. That could be a whole episode.
And I think exactly to your point, I think somebody also did an experiment. Some guy actually posted 2 resumes with 2 different names. One was his original name, which was Asian. Another one, he used a white name. And same experience, same everything. And the one with the white gets selected.
Yeah. And people tend to think, they're like, oh, not at this company. Like they wouldn't do that. If you think your company isn't participating or leaning into some of these harmful stereotypes, don't pay attention to how many, what companies will call diverse people they're hiring. Show me your C-suite, and then I'll let you know how your company's doing. How is that group of 10 exactly the same educational background, same access to privilege, the same way of thinking, and that is your leadership team? I can guarantee your promotion rates are much more indicative as a company about how you treat and value different perspectives and experience than how many people you hire. Because you having a 50% black team that you're not promoting isn't really telling me much other than you're very performative.
In diversity hire, do you think Canada is better than is Canada better than US, or US is better than Canada?
Oh, it's all so bad.
Both are bad.
It's not good. Like the thing is, I think it really depends. The US is going through like a really interesting wave right now where they're pulling back. A lot of organizations are pulling back from their diversity hiring initiatives, and a lot of universities are pulling back from that. And I think that's really disappointing, because affirmative action, meaning that you are basically correcting systemic mistakes and systemic decisions that have made it inherently harder for certain groups to get recognized, isn't reverse racism. Spoiler alert, that doesn't exist. Like same with reverse sexism. Sorry, not an option. Like those are off the table, guys, not in the menu. So I think if we compare Canada to the US, I think I've hired in both spaces. I think Canada's culture is a little bit more open to conversation just by nature of how we operate. And I think, though, both of our education systems have fundamentally failed people in these things. Like a lot of people only learn about the real cause of the wage gap at, either at university or after, right? So I don't think any country is doing it well. All bad. Should I run for office? On a very negative platform.
And I think it is the right time too.
Yeah, right? I'm like, now's the right time. I've seen those rumors circulating.
Yeah.
Tap me in, Justin. I'll do it.
And now I realize that, earlier I used to wonder that, when I was in India, I used to wonder that why so many Indians, when they move abroad, they change their names to Robert or Tom, and the last name would be the same as Singh and Bhatia and, same. But I think that is also could be one of the reasons that, people might be changing their names because, they might get preference based on their names when they are applying for jobs.
100%. And it's so sad because your name, for most people, like that's tied to your culture. Like your name is so reflective of like the places you've been and like the families that have brought you up. And I think so many people do have to adjust, their names. I've even heard of folks like listing what cities they live in, stereotypes based on what city or what region they're operating in. So many different changes just to be evaluated at that same level. And I think it's worse across different industries. Like I think the government style roles tend to actually be much better at this because it's foundational to understand what that equity looks like. But when you're going into banking and consulting, like that is not a space that has historically been super empathetic and super open and super aware of the privilege they possess. I think those are spaces that historically and probably will continue to be challenged.
And where do you think that, okay, let's go back to the because this is a whole different episode. When
I was going to say, I totally tangented us. That was very on brand for me.
No, that is fine. So let's go back again. So when you're saying like somebody who's making their resume, it has to be very simple. The big name on the top, the bigger the better. Then your something related to your profession?
You got it. So I'd love to do a little professional summary. So think 2 to maybe 5 sentences. Doesn't need to be anything too bananas.
Okay.
All you're saying is who you are, what you do, what you want. I'm Emily Durham. I'm a senior recruiter and content creator. I'm passionate about connecting people to their dream jobs and coaching top talent, seeking opportunities in talent management leadership in tech companies.
Okay.
Simple. So really 2 to 3 sentences just to set the scene of what you're looking for.
Okay. And it could be 2 pages, it could be 1 page, it doesn't matter.
Yes, as long as there's no fluff. As long as you're not just saying things to say things. If you really need 2 pages, that's fine.
But how do you stand out when a company is receiving, like, let's say, tens and thousands of resumes every single day?
So you don't. Your resume is never going to be the reason you stand out. Unless you have like a Harvard MBA and like a crazy rap sheet of where you worked, realistically, your resume is not what's making you exciting. What it comes down to is after you apply, how do we pull on the heartstrings of people to open your profile? It's not about the profile itself anymore. So after you've applied for a job, I want you going on LinkedIn, reaching out to at minimum 4 people from that company. Not the recruiter, because recruiters are not at the capacity to respond anymore with the job market. They're inundated with messages. So look up someone who's in that current job and people you think might be the manager. So an example, let's say we're applying for a finance analyst role. We're going to look up finance analyst at Google, finance manager at Google, finance controller. We're going to send them each a message. It's going to say, hey, I'm Emily. I'm a finance analyst working in Toronto. I just applied to this role. Saw you've been at the company for 5 years. I'd love to learn more about your experience. The goal is to get them on the phone, have a career chat, and at the end, they're going to fall so deeply in love with you that now you have a referral. So that's really the flow that's going to get people hired. That and asking for referrals from your network that you've been kind of cultivating through that like networking exercise.
Okay. Is MBA even relevant now? Because you brought it up that, if you're just MBA Harvard pass out. So.
I mean, Harvard's special. Harvard, if you want to take me for an MBA, I'm available. It's very, very industry specific. And I honestly think, and this is just my personal perspective, if higher education, whether it's an MBA or a master's, is going to inhibit your career, meaning you have to have this to get to that next level, your company will pay for it if they really want you. So why fork out $120K to go put some letters in your email signature? Like, I'm a big believer, get out there. Real life experience is going to matter more. And if it does hold you back, the right company is going to pay for you to go get your education.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think there are 2 sets of people who are looking for job when they're just into the job market, just like fresh out of the year one. They've either come from, let's say, they've completed their degree, they've done their masters, and now they're looking for a job for the first time. Or they're immigrants who have just moved from a different country to Canada now. They have an experience, but that experience is pretty much irrelevant because they want Canadian experience. So how they go through all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So honestly, the bones of how we apply for jobs and network, like the bones are the same. It's just kind of like the fixings of what we're going to adjust. So for folks who are new to a country, I will say there has been a pretty positive shift in Canada over the last couple of years where this whole notion of Canadian experience really isn't as relevant because we don't operate in a silo anymore. A lot of our businesses are fundamentally international. A lot of the companies that operate in Canada may not be headquartered in Canada. So they get international perspective a lot of times is actually a benefit. So I think focus firstly on the kinds of companies that you are targeting. And again, a lot of this comes back to networking, but when you are reaching out to organizations for those networking chats or applying to jobs, think about companies that have a mass footprint. And here's what I'll say. When I used to work in banking, Canadian banks, sure, maybe you have a couple of US arms. 90% of your consumer base is Canadian focused. Canadian experience there is what is held paramount. When I worked at tech, where we were operating globally, we had I think 2,000 person office in India. Oh my gosh, someone coming to me with experience from Dubai, India, and the UK, hell yeah, you'll learn Canada. You've got 2 of our 4 markets. Fantastic. Come on. So I think really be strategic about the companies that you are targeting. But I would say like international experience isn't automatically disregarded, but you really need to be thoughtful about the companies you are networking with and targeting. But from like a process perspective, just go heavy on networking and again, reach out to people who are in your industry, who've come from your country and see what companies were receptive to them. But typically, if you have your ability to work being your visa and you've got solid experience with where you're from, it's just a matter of finding the company that has an international reach that will see kind of the value that you're bringing.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is that even if you don't have any experience, the first way to go is to go to LinkedIn, look for somebody who is from the similar background that you're looking for a job in the similar kind of a fashion. Like may that be Google, may that be whatever the company that you're looking for.
100%.
Right. And the other is that it doesn't matter whether you have an experience in particular field or not, or maybe you having an experience from a different country, but now you should look for jobs where you are more diverse, like companies which are already having a diverse. I think banking is something which is a little more conventional about this.
Yeah.
Right? They want Canadian experience.
Yes. And it's because their business almost exclusively operates in Canada. And everything else, I don't want to say is an afterthought, but their core strategy is always going to be Canadian focused. But if you look at tech, especially like cloud-based SaaS products, of course, there's an international market and international reach. So you just have to be thoughtful about the industry that you're targeting. And if you find yourself in an industry where you're like, I can't transfer, this isn't working, or you're, doing this networking, it's not getting you where you need to go, taking that extra certification or Canadian specific course can sometimes be the networking nudge that you need because you don't know who you're meeting in those courses, but B, it's enough to kind of bridge that gap to say, here's what I've learned versus otherwise. Because I would say for soft skills, like for example, marketing is marketing everywhere, right? Like there's not going to be a crazy difference on how you're analyzing data from one region versus another. If you're working in wealth management, it might be different based on laws and regulations. So being thoughtful about your industry and bridging those gaps with any academic courses can be helpful. But really the focus needs to be networking and learn from people who have done this before in your space, see what worked for them. And another great way to do that is Facebook groups. Go onto a Facebook group of, new to Winnipeg and see who's come from a similar background to you. Creep them on LinkedIn, reach out on Facebook. Be like, oh, hey, hope this isn't weird. Saw you work here. I've been, trying to do X, Y, Z. Are you open to grabbing a coffee? I'd love to learn from you. And you'd be surprised how warm and open people are to that.
I've seen that the culture of networking is very, very much over here in Canada as much as anywhere else.
It's huge. We're a really networking, like coffee chat culture. Part of me loves it because I think inherently that means you have people sticking their neck out for you. I also think though, from a labor perspective, do I think it's nuts we have to do this? Yeah, this is crazy. Like you should just be able to apply for a job. Like let's make that clear, but that's not where we operate.
But I think it is also very difficult to, like every day they might be receiving 10,000 emails about the resumes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's so difficult to choose. And very honestly, like when I am also looking for somebody to hire in my company, there is an option on LinkedIn to instantly apply for that job.
Yeah.
And I will get bombarded just in a day, I will get bombarded 1,000 resumes right away. But I have a very trick around this. So what I do is that, whenever I'm writing a description about like whatever the job role is, at the end, I will write, if you have read till this place, send me an email saying purple squid.
Oh my gosh.
And send your resume.
That is awesome. To prove that they've actually read it.
They've actually read it.
Because people do high volume apply. That's why I always say, I was actually talking to my little brother about this. He was applying for an internship. He's like, 500 people already applied. And I was like, I can guarantee 475 of them have no idea they've applied.
Exactly.
Still apply. Yeah. And it's also a testament to the fact that high volume applications matter, but you still need to be applying for the right roles, right? Applying to 600 jobs and 400 of them aren't a fit isn't a good use of your time as a job seeker either. And LinkedIn Easy Apply, I love her, but I do hate her at times.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I kind of hate her. It's like, where did this come from? One time, I will never forget this. I had a finance intern apply for what was it? Vice president of like financial strategy role. And I was like, oh my gosh, you either have the confidence I want or you didn't read. And both I love. The answer is no, you're getting declined. But both are fantastic.
That's amazing. But the great thing is that, whenever I've mentioned that particular keyword, I've always hired from that particular 4-5 people who have always
I love that.
me.
I love that.
Because I think they were the ones who were seeking a right opportunity, they were the one who were actually reading everything, and they're more super active.
It's true. I think the attention to detail and I think the intention generally in the job search process is, from an employer's perspective, what tends to be missing, there's such an uptick in people, even with the market being as challenging as it is, there's such an uptick in people dropping out of the interview process without telling you, no showing for interviews. And I think a lot of that is because of burnout from the volume of applications. The second someone gets a job, they're pulling out. They don't feel like they have the capacity to apply for all of these jobs at once. And it's understandable. Like actually, the government of Canada just released November's labor stats. And this is, I believe, the second month or second quarter in a row where we have had our unemployment rate go up.
Oh, yeah.
And that is indicative of, yes, we're creating new jobs, but not at the rate that we have population looking for work, right? So I don't think this trend of high volume application is going anywhere, but yeah, protecting yourself from burnout's got to be priority one. Otherwise, you're missing your purple squirrel.
I think the unemployment rate is the highest in the last 8 years or so.
Yeah, 6.8% is
6.8%.
disturbing. That's a very, very disturbing number.
Why do you think is that happening right now?
There's a lot. And I will preface this by saying I'm not an economist, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I think there's a few core factors. The first is we had a huge tech boom that we all watched happen in real time. It was great to watch in the moment, where we had so many different tech hires happening. You know, people were getting paid so much more than before. And that was because the market went from local to global with the pandemic. We were able to work from anywhere. And then all of these companies overhired, and you have like the Metas of the world and the Amazons of the world suddenly saying, my company is too layered. I can't get anything done. Yeah, no surprise. And then what they're doing is they're doing these mass waves of layoffs. So you've created jobs, you've taken away jobs. So you've skilled people for an industry now that you don't have the capacity to fill. So that we're still recovering from that. You've got immigration, which will always be contributing to like more folks looking for work. And I think that the third and biggest part, in my opinion, is our lack of preparedness with AI. So a lot of the folks who are looking for work right now are Gen Z. Like Gen Z is a population that is struggling to find work. And it's not because they're not fantastic. Y'all, I love Gen Z. Gen Z is ready to rumble with tech. Companies don't have jobs available to match the advanced skill sets of this generation. So you've got these kind of three pieces to this really messy pie. So a lot of companies, so for example, Gen Z has such a unique relationship to work, right? Like the way Gen Z looks at work isn't the way millennials do. So me as a very young, obviously extremely young millennial, no one should be laughing, it should be very serious. As a very young millennial, your relationship to work is that you're told job hopping is bad, job hopping is the devil, you're loyal to companies, you pick a company, you stay there, and you have to value a company that has high moral standing. And I grew up really thinking, oh no, my company cares about me. Gen Z wasn't raised like that. Gen Z saw multiple economic fallouts. They saw the pandemic. They saw their parents working themselves to the bone and still struggling to retire. They don't have like these rose-colored glasses with work that other generations have. So what does that mean? It means Gen Z doesn't care about your corporate morals because they know you have none. Gen Z doesn't care about the fact that you are, going to get me pizza lunch, pay me, and I'm going to go home at 5. How about that? Gen Z is prioritizing their wellness because they have the vision that other generations have lacked, which is that there is that gap in corporate America to care about us back.
But who is hardworking, Gen Z or a millennial?
I think they both work hard. I think Gen Z works smarter. And I think other generations maybe aren't as comfortable with how Gen Z works. And I think it all goes back to this AI piece, right? Like Gen Z, when they get a task, isn't thinking, I'm going to work 14 hours and get this done. Their first thought is, okay, how am I going to do this smarter? So it's 6 hours. And they're going to AI, they're asking a friend, they're going on YouTube. They're much more scrappy with how they work. Gen Z for me is like the startup generation with how they think about approaching work. And when you think about big banks, when you think about consultants, or consulting as an industry, they're not equipped to make that successful. So you've got these like highly skilled, scrappy workers. You've got big, slow, oiled companies that are talking about like AI and we're so innovative. The AI in question is like a chatbot that's been out for 10 years. Like it's not as innovative as they think it is. And the skills that Gen Z are bringing actually aren't shining at these companies. So there's like a fundamental mismatch with what Gen Z is capable of and what some of these big, slower moving companies can do.
Interesting.
I love Gen Z.
Yeah, you clearly do.
They're my people.
You can fall into the same category of Gen Zs also.
So true. So many people are saying that. Thank you so much. I'm very Gen Z adjacent, they're saying.
We want more and more Gen Zs to watch this episode.
We're getting Gen Z in there. Gen Z, I love you. Gen Z, if you're listening, thank you for your service. I love them.
Gen Z, one person that who's watching.
Gen Z, it's for you, baby. I love you.
Okay, so let's go back to, let's say, okay, so I've finally found a place where somebody has called me for an interview. I finally got an interview now. Yeah. Now, how to prepare for an interview?
Yes. So first things first, whether it's virtual or in person, the soft skills are going to be all the same. So you need to practice being a clear and concise communicator.
Yeah. What do you mean by soft skills?
Yes. No, it's a good question. So your soft skills are, think of your emotional intelligence. So it's how are you physically showing up to the interview? So put an outfit on that is appropriate for your office.
You mean hoodies won't work?
If you're in tech, you're actually overdressed in a hoodie. Let me tell you that. You can show up in a hoodie in tech 100%. But if you're in capital markets, let's get that tie out, right? Like, let's get that nice little jacket out. So let's make sure that from a like emotional intelligence preparedness perspective, you physically show up appropriate. Your communication skills are reflective of who you are. That means you're a clear communicator. You smile when you speak. You use some of those body language hacks to come across as really confident. So speaking with your hands, leaning in, all of those kind of psych hacks that we know exist, all of that is great to practice year round. As far as the job itself, everything you need to prepare for an interview is in the job description. Recruiters are not experts in the job you do. They are experts in recruiting. So the questions they're going to ask you, I promise, are in the job description. Go through and look at the skills they're asking for, pull those out, go to ChatGPT and say, hey, babes, what are some interview questions I might get for this job description? Use that to prepare. So that's how you're going to prep for what you're going to be asked. But no matter what, you're going to be asked, tell me about yourself. So get that ready to go. And we can totally dive into how to do that. You're going to be asked these questions ChatGPT has given you. And that you're going to be asked, do you have any questions for me as your interviewer? Yeah. And that's your time to build relationship and ask those high value questions. So prep all of this. And also, I'm a big believer, before an interview, write notes, not a script. So you're going to get all this info together. You're going to bullet point out these notes so that it's still conversational, but you at least have a flavor of what you're going to say, and start thinking of examples that are going to cover each of those questions using the STAR method. Have you heard of the STAR method?
No.
Oh my gosh. If I could get a tattoo of a star and it not look bad on me, just know I would, because I think the STAR method is the coolest thing on the planet. So it's a framework of answering questions where S stands for the situation, T is the task, A is action, R is result. So if you're someone like me and you get really nervous in interviews, because believe it or not, I still do, you pause and you go, okay, what was the situation? You asked me about how I did this. I'm going to give you 2 sentences to say. The situation at work was blah, 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 blah. I was tasked with blah, 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 blah. Action, I was responsible for doing this. The result, a 200% increase in click-through rate. And no matter what, you're giving the interviewer the right amount of information without saying too much or saying too little. So practicing those things by recording yourself on your phone, very selfie style, go back and watch yourself and rinse and repeat. That was the longest answer in the world, but I'm telling you, that 2-minute soundbite, that's how to prepare for any interview for the rest of your life.
This is a brilliant method. So STAR method. So situation, talk about the situation, then the task that you were handling, then the action that you took for that task, and the results that you produced.
Exactly.
Amazing.
It's so good. And if you're doing a virtual interview, put a sticky note physically on your laptop with that. And every time you panic, 9 times out of 10, you can answer the question with that framework. It at least gives you a place to stop, slow down your breathing, look at that and say, if I can just get the situation out of my mouth, we're good. And then the conversation gets back on track.
Interesting. And how many people do actually follow this? Like,
quite a few. It's funny. I can always tell when someone's listened to my podcast before they interview with me, where I'm like, that was a really good answer. Like, good job. I would say a lot of people do. For some people, it just comes organically. Like after a little bit, you should. The idea of the framework isn't that you're tied to this for the rest of your life. It's like anything. It's the training wheels on the bike until you feel comfortable enough to ride alone. So do this for a little bit. I'm also a big believer in consistently interviewing, even if you're in your dream job, just to keep that muscle flexed. And it's a great way to inadvertently network. At some point, you're no longer going to have to think of STAR, but for now, it's a really healthy place to start.
Yeah, I think I did a podcast with Yasser Khan. He's a public speaking coach and he helps CEOs to, how to speak on the stages. And he also gave me one of the abbreviations like these, PREP, which is point, reason, point. And point is like whatever the conversation is all about, you talk about that point, start with the title and give a reason. Reason is basically what the action you took, what the task was there, what the results that you created, and then go back to the same point to close the statement.
Brilliant.
So that is also pretty much similar, but I think this is more precise exactly what you need to do because now you know that action that you have taken, the results that you created, the task that you were holding.
It's so helpful. It's so helpful. It has gotten me through many an interview. It is fantastic.
Now I think I would be ready for an interview.
We're ready to go. We can do one if you need.
Yeah, I want to do that.
I'm ready.
But before that, tell me like what if somebody who is in an interview and they don't know the answer for one of the questions?
Yes. If you're in an interview and you do not know the answer to a question, don't feel like you need to pretend you have the answer. Any company that is going to scold you for not being Google or being an encyclopedia is not a company you want to work in. If a company, the same way they're evaluating you, you need to be evaluating them. So start with that mindset. Anyone who's not going to let me be human, I'm good. I don't want to work there. If you don't know the answer, be honest and share how you'd find it. So I always say, I'll be honest, Don't know the answer to that. Here's how I'd find it. I'd start off by doing a quick Google search. I'd go to the team. And if I still had questions, I'd come to you as my leader. But either way, I'm a quick learner. We'll figure it out. Be nonchalant and have confidence sharing that you are okay that you don't know the answer to that. Humility is going to get you a lot further than just talking to talk.
Yeah. And I think some of the questions like, which are very common in an interview that, what are your 5-year goals? Or, tell me what are your weaknesses? How should people respond to that?
Can I just say I hate those questions? Like, talk about lazy interview questions. My 5-year goal, first of all, lottery. Second of all, not working here. Thirdly, George Clooney is my husband. Do you think I'm getting any of those 3? I hope so. Really hope so. I think it's a lazy interview question. If you're getting asked...
But I'm pretty sure you're not going to say that.
Well, it depends what company. If you're interviewing with me, please say that. You're automatically hired. But I think if you're getting asked about a 5-year plan, I'm a big believer in transparency, but not transparency to a fault. A lot of people, and this is like the number one criticism I'll get in my comments, where people are like, we're playing the game. Yeah, no, I know. We have to play the game to win. We didn't build the game. So as much as I would love to tell you, be authentic to yourself, sometimes that isn't the right business decision. So if you're asked, your 5-year plan, be as honest as you can. Like, I'm very open to going with the flow. I know for me, it's important to insert some generic things. Work on a team that is really collaborative. Continue to learn and stay in the space of insert the industry you work in. But I'm open to seeing where that takes me. That's good enough. The strengths and weaknesses one, what a stupid question.
Yeah.
You're going to ask someone their weakness. They're going to tell you, and I'll bet you $100, I'm a perfectionist. Are you? I'm not. I'm okay with things not being very good. That's fine. But so many of us panic and are scared to be vulnerable because it is a trick question. You're asking me to confide in you the thing that I think I'm the worst at in an interview in this economy. That's a really crummy thing to do to somebody. If you're in that situation, my biggest hack is answer honestly, but tell people how you fix it. So for me, it's data. I have to count with my fingers and toes. If it's past 20, I don't know the number. I've run out of digits. So what I'll typically say in an interview is, I'll be honest, data's not my strong suit, but to combat that, I am constantly listening to data podcasts so I can understand things better. And I schedule extra time to myself so I mitigate any errors. That's always gotten me further than just saying, I'm a perfectionist, or giving like a default answer.
Okay. So basically not saying that, saying from the standpoint that you're talking about your weaknesses, but where you can grow, where you can learn.
Exactly. Give them the weakness, but most importantly, talk about how you overcome it.
Okay. So like, for example, like we said about the data, we could say that, instead of saying that I wouldn't say that it is my weakness, but I would say that, I'm learning to get better at this.
Yes, that is exactly how you want to frame it. You want to frame it as, I'm not fantastic at this, but here's what I've done. And if you have data points or examples of how you've improved, even when folks say, like, I'm a really nervous public speaker, I'll never forget, I had one candidate, and this was, it didn't come up in this question because I would never ask it, but he had spoken a little bit about how public speaking was such a challenge for him. And he had said, I just made a point to talk to strangers when I was out for dinner. And he's like, within a couple of weeks, I felt so much better about my presence. And it was such a good example of someone who just sees a problem and is like, I'll figure it out. And he ended up getting the job. He was wonderful. But it was such an amazing, like, real life, authentic, raw example. And I think that gets you much further.
Interesting. Okay. So finally, the last question is about how should people negotiate about their salaries?
Oh, I love this. I love asking for money. I think it's fun. First of all, step number 1, change your brain around it. Every single person who is scared to negotiate feels like the company is doing them a favor by giving them a job offer. Like, I don't want to be seen as greedy. If you're not seen as greedy, your peer will be happy to be seen as greedy and will make $30,000 more than you. Never accept the first offer. You are always leaving money on the table. Stop feeling guilty. Stop feeling like you're asking for too much. If they are not able to budge on budget, that's fine. At least you asked. So you need to get the anxiety out of your brain. I'm a big believer in the alter ego effect. When I go in to negotiate, I'm not Emily Durham. I'm Emily the recruiter. I was going to cuss. I won't. You know that episode of The Office where she's like, I'm Kelly Kapoor, business bitch. No, that's me. Before I'm Emily Durham, business bitch. It's not the same. I'm built very different than Emily who's watching Lost on the weekends. She's a very different person. Put on your alter ego. Stop making it emotional. Then the first thing you need to do is be data backed and have a really strong anchor number. You cannot walk into a negotiation wishy-washy on what you want. Figure out what your ideal number is, which is your anchor number. Let's say it's 100K. Add 10%. They're not coming back and giving you what you want. 10% and not much more, because other than that, if you go above that 10% range, you tend to see people drop off and think you don't have your research. So have a number in mind. If you've gotten a job offer or you're negotiating a promotion, get the person on the phone who you're speaking with. Typically, it's your recruiter. Start off with a thank you. You go, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed the process. And make it sound like it's a team effort. I've really enjoyed us collaborating and working together on the interview process. I'm happy with a lot of the offer. Full transparency, I'm looking for a number closer to $110,000 a year. Our offer's sitting at 85. Is there anything we can do to get those numbers closer together? That is the perfect way to word this. It's not aggressive. It's not pushy. It's we language. You're being transparent about what you want. We've added 10%, but that's nobody's business. And then we're going to sit in silence. The most powerful negotiation tool in the world is your silence. Make your ask and sit there. What can we do? It's not my job at this stage to be convincing you why I'm a great candidate. You already like me. You already wrote the offer. You see what I see in me. I'm not going to sit here and beg you, because if you don't give me the number I want, someone else will, or I'll accept your offer. I get to make that decision. But you sit there in silence and you let the recruiter do the rest. They're going to come back and give you the number. You get to decide if you negotiate one more time, and really you only have one more time after that, or if you're going to accept that job offer. But have strong data, use that we language, and really make sure you're posing as a what can we do question, and then sit in silence and let yourself sit in that uncomfortability.
So usually when somebody is negotiating, they are not supposed to, like the employer does not respond right away, or is it like they have to respond it right away, or he takes or she takes a little time?
It depends. If you're working at a smaller company or you're speaking to the person who's controlling the budget, like I've had, for example, when I've hired for like my teams, I'll be like, fine, you want the 10? I'll give you the 10, no problem. Typically, if you're 9 times out of 10 working with the recruiter, they're not owning the budget. So they'll have to go back to the team, see what's approved, yada, yada. If you don't hear anything in 2 days, don't panic. On day 3, I would reach out and ask for an update, but expect a little bit of a delay.
Okay. In your experience, how many times have you seen people negotiating, and to what number have they?
Oh man, you know what? It depends on level. Like for example, when I do entry level sales, I've got a range of maybe $5,000, right?
Okay.
And like I can take you to that number. I really can't take you a penny above. It is what it is.
Anyone that you have seen who has gone beyond, and that person has got it?
You know what? In more senior roles, yes. It depends at the company. Like certain companies have flexibility, but for senior roles that I've worked with, and even like with my clients, the recruiter will tell them, oh, we can do 140 base. And I'm like, please, we'll make it 2. Well, let's make it 2. You go back and forth enough. And I think I've seen people get like 50, 60, 70, $100,000 more in their offer. Yeah. Because you have to remember, people think about salary as the only thing. Like cash isn't always king. If they come back and say, my budget is a hard stop at $150,000 base pay, I say, great, what do your stocks look like? I want an extra 3 weeks of vacation. And you're going to pay for my car and my gas. And you're going to do X, Y, Z. Total compensation is much more valuable than cash alone. So I've seen people get great increases on their base pay when they negotiate well and clearly and sit in silence. They are able to read the room and say, this is the highest this person can take me. And then you come back with the fancy perks. Okay, I need more time off, and that counts as money. So all of those things together, you can easily double the offer that you're getting if you know how to play the game.
So who do you think is the recruiter working towards? Is it towards the interviewee or the interviewer?
Ooh, it's a good question. I think that's almost a moral question. I think it depends on the recruiter. I would like to think for myself, when I've worked with folks, my goal is to get that candidate money that makes them excited to stay at that company for a long time. But you've also got people on the flip side where they work a commission-based role and their goal is to fill the position fast and for the most amount of salary possible. So I think it really depends. I would always operate under the assumption no person at work is looking out for you other than you. So don't think anyone's doing you favors. If they tell you that they're doing their best, sure, you can trust them, but like grain of salt trust, right? Like I don't think we should resolve too much trust in people that we don't intimately know.
Yeah. And have you ever recommended something to the candidate that, that this is how I think this would be the best choice for you, and this is how you should approach towards this? Have you done that?
You know what? I have. I used to get in trouble for this a lot, actually. Now that
From
I'm
your
like,
recruiter?
Yes, like back when I was still doing like in-house recruiting, especially when it would come to like young women in sales. I will never forget this, and I pray I will send this to her. I'm still in contact with this candidate. She had told me about like another offer she had. I gave her our offer, and she's like, "What can you do?" And I was like, "Girl, I'm not gonna lie to you." I was like, that's a better job. I'm like, you should 100% take that job. and she took the other job. And obviously I was crushed because I had to go back to the manager and explain like, we can't do it. But I think the right thing to do sometimes isn't always the fun thing or the thing that makes your job easy. But I've also had people on the phone. I had another candidate, this actually was less than a year ago, was on the phone with him. He was so excited to accept this job, right? Like, we're ready to rumble. I'm walking him through. He goes, I accept. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I accept. And I was like, anything else you'd like to ask? He goes, no. And I said, don't you think, no, not one question? And he goes, is there any room to negotiate? And I was like, yes, I'm happy you asked. Happy you asked.
That's a great way.
Yeah. So I will say though, nobody's going to do that, guys. You need to ask. But so I was like, I know
Guys,
for a
Emily's
fact.
not always going to do it for you, okay? She's just done
wish I
it once or
could.
twice. She wished she could.
I wish, but you really, as much as the offer could be the right number for you, would an extra $10,000 hurt? Probably not. Just ask. Just ask.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to ask for a negotiation.
Worst case scenario, it's a no. And as long as you're coming from that empathetic, we-based place, you're not pissing anyone off. It's money. It's not my money coming out of my pocket. I don't care how much you make. I just want you to sign that offer so I can get on to my next task. Like, we're good.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. I'm ready to put myself into a demo version of me where I'm going to suck at it because
You're going to be great.
because now we are going to do a live demo. And I was telling you that, we did the same thing with Yasser also, where as if I'm preparing for a public speaking event, which is happening. And, I would come up with, this is how I'm going to speak. And he corrected me in a lot of places. Now, the tables are such that, I'm coming to you for an interview and I'm a marketing manager with 5 years of experience. And I'm nervous as hell.
That's okay. I think we can go for it. I think nerves are a sign you care. And I think that is powerful.
Yes. I want to give value to the people from that point of view that, I want to be in your shoes as somebody who's going for an interview and see that, how I can learn and how you could learn from this kind of a conversation.
I think that's fantastic.
Okay,
I'm ready to rumble. I'm going to be ruthless. But
yes,
it's because I care. It's because I care. Okay, amazing.
Okay.
Do you want me just to hop in with my...
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
First, just before I start, how do I, when we are sitting, we greet each other or we say, hey, how are you doing? Or is it good morning? What is the best way to do it?
Good question. Okay, so walk in, and whether this is virtual or in person, always start off with the pleasantries, right? So come in, command the room. Hi, good to meet you. Little handshake. Good to meet you. How's it going? How's your day? Simple. When the recruiter asks you, and I'll give you a tip before we start the interview. I'm feeling a little generous. When the recruiter says, how are you? Don't just serve them a good, how are you? No, give me something to work with. I'm doing really well. And actually, we did this when we were chatting earlier. Yeah. We're like, oh, I'm doing really well. I was watching this TV show. Have you heard of it? Are you going to watch it? Oh, I'm doing really well. I just finished this book. It was such an interesting read. How's your week been? Give the recruiter a little something that shows, A, that you like to learn. So make it an education-forward answer. But B, it gives you something to talk about. Because they might respond and say, I haven't heard of that podcast. Like, what have you been listening to? That's fascinating. And it kind of breaks the ice a little bit.
I feel like I need more coaching from you.
I have all the time in the world. With this job market, we could be doing this all day.
Okay, let's go for it.
All right, you ready to rumble?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. I always love starting off. I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your career journey.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I'm really happy that, we're doing it inside and not, I really like physical kind of an interviews rather than doing it on virtual, because this way that, I can get to know better about you and you can go and...
That's okay.
See, this is what is happening.
Okay, shall we pause right there? Hey, interviews are just conversations.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you a single conversation I've had where I haven't stumbled, said something a little bit funky, or spilled over my words or spat on the interviewer's face. By the way, you've done none of those things. Yeah. If you're hitting a point in an interview where you're panicking, there is nothing wrong with taking a breath and going, making a joke of it. Be like, oh, I'm just so excited. All the words are coming out at once.
It's always been, for me, I've been on the other side of the thing.
Yes.
So which is why now,
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Because I've told you I've never worked I've never had a job or something.
Yes.
I've always...
Well, I think that's a blessing and a beautiful thing. Imagine being able to avoid this. It would be wonderful. But no, if you hit the point and you're in an interview where things are happening so fast, crack a joke, pause, be like, oh, I speak faster than I think. What can I say? You're going to love me. And you keep it going. Like a cheeky little joke breaks the ice, and you'll typically get the recruiter saying oh my gosh, don't worry about it. They hear people do this stuff all day, every day.
Okay.
All day, every day.
Okay.
Let's crack back into it.
I'm really happy that I'm really very excited that we are doing it in person. So yeah, let's get going with this.
Amazing. Okay. Don't even worry. You're judging yourself way more than the recruiter is going to judge you.
Yes.
I think people tend to think that recruiters are looking at how you answer questions almost as a personal evaluation. At the end of the day, all I'm assessing for is, do you know the things required for this
Yes.
job? Can you hang? Like, can
Yeah.
you communicate with the team and have a
I'm not
conversation?
going to get a Mr. World crown over here.
No, honestly, I think you're being really hard on yourself. I think
Yes.
the biggest challenge with interviews is giving yourself permission to have a conversation.
Yeah.
All it is a conversation.
Okay.
It's
Let's do
two people talking about the things that you have experience in. And the same way, it all goes back to like, it's a date. If you don't like me, girl, someone else will.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and if that recruiter's not a fit, somebody else will be.
Yeah.
All right. Amazing. Tell me a little bit about why you applied for this job.
Well, I always, by the way, I love what you guys are doing. And I've done a little bit of research about the recent company revenues that have grown and the kind of businesses that you're running all across the globe. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I think based on my experience, because I'm a marketing manager in the previous company that I was talking about, I've done pretty decently in terms of, bringing them from A to B position. And I think those kind of skills could be helpful for your business as well.
Beautiful. Okay, a lot is really good there. I want to tell you what I love. Love that you call out that you've done research for the company. Love that you're calling out your previous experience. What I think we're missing, and this is what a lot of people miss, is the values alignment.
Values?
So, and granted, we've made up this job, so there's a very real excuse for us not having these. Companies, especially recruiters, melt when they hear you talking about the foo-foo stuff. And I shouldn't call it foo-foo. That's not nice, but it's true. Like, what y'all are posting that you're like philanthropists on your website. Your carbon footprint is crazy. It's fine. Go to the company's website before the interview. Take a look at what they claim to care about. Whether that is investing in their communities. I remember, shout out to Intuit, when I worked at Intuit and I had interviewed, I loved that they were so heavily invested in financial literacy. Like, I thought that was genuinely really interesting. So throw it in at the end. Plus, I saw you guys do XYZ in the community, super aligned to what I care about. So I wanted to learn more. If you also wanted to take it to the next level, call out the specifics in the job description.
Okay.
So really say, I noticed you're looking for someone who's an expert at like SEO optimization.
Okay.
In my most recent team, I did blah, 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 blah. And I'd love to talk about how we could partner on that.
Got
But
it.
overall good, you would make it to the next round.
Okay, perfect. So specific goal for specific expertise that you're going to bring on the table and the values. Talk about company's values.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
All right. My next question. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you're looking for a role?
For a role?
Yes, like why are you looking for your next job? Basically, recruiters will sometimes ask, why did you leave your last company? Or why are you looking to leave your last company? We'll insert that.
Well, I'm looking for upgrading myself from where because I think I've served quite a lot of time in the previous company. I've learned a lot from them. And I've also given somewhat value to whatever projects that I was working with. But now I think that this is for me to upgrade to the next level. So which is why I thought that this is the right opportunity to, work with you.
Beautiful. Okay. Oh, by the way, you're doing really well. And I think maybe you need to hear that. You're doing really well. Okay. The only thing I would say let's add is let's root in data a little bit more.
Okay.
I always think rooting in data is a great way to quantify things versus saying I feel. So when we say, I think I have, contributed quite a bit, that person, the recruiter could come back and say,
I'm just being humble.
well, humble does stumble in interviews. You're being humble and it's wonderful and I adore you for it. But the biggest misconception we have about interviews is that we're meant to be humble. No, you're meant to be braggadocious.
Okay, so you need to brag.
Yeah, you need to come in and speak loudly.
So now this is the thing. I'm not the kind of a person who brags. Now this is also one of the things.
So I think this is where the alter ego really comes in.
Okay.
Because I agree. And look at you. We need to come up with a good name for him.
Yeah.
And who is this alter ego? But the alter ego effect and that mindset of, I'm not a person who does this. It doesn't matter. Are you a person who wants to get paid? Probably. And that person's got to brag.
That person needs to be sitting here.
That person needs to be present. So it doesn't mean that we are, exclusively talking about I. The way you can combat this is use I and we. So you'll go into this conversation by saying, I've been at my last company for 5 years. I've had a lot of opportunities to grow. I think I've hit my ceiling here. The people are amazing. I'm looking for a next opportunity and give more specifics to specifically manage a larger team, to work on international products, whatever that might be. I'm really happy at my company. We have an amazing team. We've hit a wonderful goal. But this is what I'm looking for. So I and we and root in data as much as possible and give yourself permission to brag. And biggest piece of advice, if you're like freaking out about the feeling like you're bragging or like it's inauthentic to you, it's okay in the interview to be a human and say, I have to be honest, I hate talking about myself. So bear with me if I'm stumbling through. Like it's okay to do that. That's human. It's a conversation.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yes.
Are you ready for the kicker?
Okay.
What are your salary expectations?
Well, I think from the last 5 years, whatever I've done in the previous company, and I've got promotion every year. And for this company, for this role that you are hiring, I would be expecting somewhere closer to $160,000.
Beautiful. Okay, that was a really good answer. That's a really good answer if you genuinely are aligned to that number. Because I think sometimes, especially if you're early in your career, you may not know what that magic number is. If 160 is truly your number, stunning. That's a perfect answer. We leave her as is. Option 2, if you don't want to share it, ask them, what's the budget?
Yeah,
Reverse. You don't necessarily have to, but if it's a company, because you always run the risk of if I share a number too low, they're going to price me low. And if I share a number too high, they're kicking me out of the competition.
Do they already know that, if I'm going out for an interview, do I already know that what is the payroll that they're hiring for or not?
In theory.
Because I thought that maybe I already know that they're hiring somewhere around that
That's
number.
fair. I would say it depends. Companies now are starting to have to mandate posting their salary ranges. Like it's happening in most states across the US. It's starting to happen in Canada. I wouldn't say it's super common, and sometimes that data is not accurate. I'm a big believer in assume there's like an asterisk next to that range because there's always something that can be done. So if you're lock set on, this is my number, share what you just said, except the only thing I would change is say I would be able to start talking at this number.
I would be starting from.
Because then it gives you flexibility. The more you learn about the role, you might say, oh, this job isn't a 160 job. This is a 185 job. And then you're not stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that reminds me why we have our services starting from.
Always, because you never know. The ceiling can keep going. The other option, if you're not comfortable, is saying that, I'm more than happy to share it the more I learn about the role. Are you comfortable sharing a range? And the third option is, I don't really know. You play a little conveniently stupid. You go, I don't really know what your range is. I'm not super actively looking. I can tell you what I'm, starting to target and what I'm being priced at based on my other conversations. And it's starting at about 160, but, it would really depend. AKA, we can start talking there, but you're going to have to wow me to get me to move.
Yeah, I like that answer better.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. And I'm going to ask you my final question. Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, absolutely. How many times do I have to come to the office? Like, do you have work from home option as well? And then my next question would be, are the vacations, how many vacations do I get?
I love what you just did.
What?
I love what you just did. You did what every candidate does. And listen, those are the things I want to know too. Because I don't want you Amazoning me and surprising me back in the office. Yeah. And vacation, don't play with my vacation. I want my vacation days. Let's leave those for the last questions that we ask. We need to play the game in the sense that we want the recruiter to think that we're looking at this job like it is the best thing we've ever seen. So focus more on the impact-based questions. For example, who are some of your team's superstars, and what are the things that they're doing that you want the next person in this role to be doing? That's one of my favorite questions. Another one can be
who are the superstars in your team?
Yeah, who are the superstars in your team, and what are they doing that makes them superstars? Like that's a rock star.
This is such a
it's good.
Great value.
It's good. And then, even if you don't get this job, you now know that one course that one person took is something you should maybe look into. So that's a great one. Asking a little bit about how the team manages performance, very indicative of a team's culture. If you hear things like, oh my gosh, we take it as it comes and we have ongoing feedback. Okay, so you don't have a structured performance plan and I'm never getting a promotion. Thanks for your time. If you ask about how the team manages high volume seasons and they say things like, we're a family, they're the kind of family that sends you to therapy. Do not take that job. That's the drunk uncle that you don't sit next to at Christmas. A normal company is not saying that. So ask those kind of value-based questions, team-based questions. And then at the end, throw it in, you know what, I forgot to ask, what's your return to work policy looking like? And make those more money and time off questions nonchalant.
Got it. So I think value questions needs to be the center of attraction over here.
Yes.
And in the end, snip it a little bit about, talking about coming to the office scenario or the vacations thing.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with you asking so for example, if coming to the office is a deal breaker, ask it before you go into the interview.
It is, because if I'm in downtown, I don't want to come.
You would have to do, I don't care. Your buffet is not enough for me to come in for the office 4 days a week. Not happening.
Seriously.
It's okay to ask these things before. Even salary range, if you don't want to waste your time, reach out and ask the recruiter, what's the range and what's the return to work policy via email before the interview.
I think what is more important for this kind of an interview setup to have actually me winning in this situation is only when I've practiced enough.
Yes.
So I think what you said earlier that, practice in front of the mirror, practice before going for an interview, because the more you practice, the better you will be even in answering to these questions. And you
It's
know
true.
exactly what needs to be said.
It's true. And then I think the biggest thing is you're never going to know all of the answers to everything, but at a certain point with enough practice, you trust yourself.
Yeah.
Like you trust yourself that you might not say the perfect thing, but you'll say it the best you can, and that's good enough.
But do you think like most of the time, so like for example, like the way that I've put myself into this spontaneously and I'm going to an interview and I'm, whatever is coming to me right now and I'm just verbalizing it. Do most of the people who go for an interview do it that way, or they go and practice first and then come for an interview?
I think that's a really good question. And I feel as though I should wear a t-shirt that says that's so industry specific, but it kind of is. Like when I think of like folks in marketing, I don't find that they tend to over prepare for interviews. I think it really depends on the nature of your work. Because then when I think about investment banking interviews I used to do, they were studying because I would be asking them, what's happening to the price of gold today? And that would be part of the conversation. So I think it really is a 50-50 split. You need to know yourself. For me personally, if I over prepare, it's no longer a conversation. You don't get the essence of Emily. And that's not helpful for anybody. That's why I'm a big believer in structured notes and organic practicing. And you'll eventually know, am I the kind of person who needs to do a little more or a little bit less?
Okay, yeah. I think a little bit of a practice doesn't hurt. And especially with these very, very most of the common questions like what asked right now, I think these are the ones which everybody should be prepared for.
100%. I would say no matter what level you're at, you're always going to be asked, tell me about yourself. Why do you want to work here? What are your salary expectations? And do you have questions for me? If you at least have those down, you're going to be fine. Everything else is just conversation about the subject matter that you're already an expert in. That's why you're in the interview. So it's a convo.
So do I get a job?
You're hired.
Oh, yes.
You're an unpaid intern and the company doesn't exist, but you are so hired. I'll see you Monday. I'll see you Monday.
This was fun.
This was the best. This was the most fun interview I've had.
Oh, is it?
This was a blast.
I'm glad.
Good. I'm glad
I'm
to hear
also
it.
having fun for making fun of myself.
I think you're way too hard on yourself. There are some people who should be harder on themselves, and you're not one of them.
Amazing. This was fun.
I'm having a ball.
I'm glad that you are. Okay. There's one question that, you get asked a lot that what are the 3 things that you should never say in an interview? What would you say?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, I think the first is just a plain I don't know. And I know that might sound contradictory because we spoke about the importance of being humble when we don't know things, but I don't know without an I know how to find out just sounds like you truly don't know. Like the ability to figure stuff out is such an underrated skill. So if you just say like, oh, I don't know, and that's it, that's your answer. No, give them a little more. So let's not do that. I also think it is.
Sorry, how would you say that though?
Yeah, so instead of saying like, oh, I don't know how to calculate that, you'd say, oh, I don't know. But honestly, to figure it out, I'd probably Google it. And if that didn't help, maybe I'd go to YouTube. And if that failed, honestly, I might call you and ask for help. That is going to get you way further. It's fantastic. The next thing I would avoid saying is anything negative about your former employer or your boss, even if they deserve it. If they're asking you, why are you leaving this company? Don't say, my boss is the devil incarnate. That's not a good idea. Might be true. Not a good look. Like studies show us when we speak negatively of others, that actually reflects back onto ourselves. It's not the right approach. So avoid anything like that. And I would say the third is kind of basic, but you'd be surprised how many people do it. Don't ask fundamental questions about how the business operates in the interview. Don't ask, how do you make money? What are your products? If you can Google it and it's easily available in the job description, it's a really bad idea. I'd actually rather you lie and pretend that you know and then Google it after.
Oh.
Yes.
Interesting. Have you seen any of this happening in real time when somebody's asking you these questions?
Quite a bit. The I don't know, not quite as frequently. I think people, especially the more they practice, get better at that.
Yeah.
But I've had people ask, what do you guys do again? What's your product?
Oh, that's so bad.
It's not good. Like truly just lie. Like I'm actually okay with you lying.
Yeah.
But if you tell me you straight up didn't Google us, like what am I going to do? Go to the manager and be like, this candidate's fantastic. He has no idea who you are.
Like you didn't even care to look up
Google us.
Google us.
Like a 20-second Google. Yeah, that's a hard no.
Amazing. And now let's say I've got the job. I'm working with you from the last, let's say, 3 years now. Now, how do I ask for promotion?
Well, you're already 3 years too late, so let's get that started.
Okay.
Oh, honey, we think about promotions day one. The second you start that job, baby, you better think what's happening in 12 months.
I want that job.
That's your job. The second you start a job, you need to think, what's next? Everything in life, like in my opinion, from a business perspective, is in a work back plan. So what's your next goal? How do we get there? If you're ready for a promotion, there's a few things you need to do. Firstly, start having conversations about promotions the second that you feel ready. You don't want to wait 2 years. There's no perfect time to ask for a promotion. I can guarantee you the perfect time is almost never within the first year of you starting a job, unless there's a lot of organizational change. First thing you need to do is actively keep a wow, I did that list. And that is a list of things that you have done in the last quarter that you actively update every Friday at 3:00, where it's all of the cool things you've done. It's the project you led, it's the presentation, it's the screenshotted feedback from your coworkers about how wonderful you are in one document. So there's never going to be a question mark of if you're ready. Then you need to start conversations early with your manager. And again, this all comes from a place of we. We are a team. Sit down with your manager in a one-on-one. Start with thanks. Really appreciate this company. Love how much you've helped me grow. When I think about my ideal career in the next year or two, I'd love to be in the senior marketing manager position. Do you think I could be a fit for that? And can we work together to build a plan to get me there? And then silence. The silence is going to tell you a lot. A manager who sees your potential is going to say, oh, hell yeah, we're going to meet every single week for the next few months. We're going to put together a plan, and the next promotion cycle, we're putting you up. A manager who says you've got a long way to go, you either take that as a challenge or you take it as a sign they'll never have the money to pay you. And you do need to kind of suss that out.
Amazing. Now, most of the time, like when people are asking for promotion, do they ask in person or is it that they send an email?
I would say it's never a good idea to send anything significant in writing. I think it's a good idea to do things either in person or on the phone. But the idea is a promotion or an ask for a promotion shouldn't be a surprise. Like your boss shouldn't be like, what? Like, you want that? What? I didn't know you wanted that. Have those performance conversations regularly. Figure out when your company's promotion cycle is. And then when it's time for your promotion cycle, that's when you say, hey, big boss, we've been working together the last 9 months. Do you think I'm ready? What do you need for me to start moving forward with this process? All of this should be in your one-on-ones, which are ideally in person or over the phone.
Okay, so you think that somebody who's looking for a promotion should not send an email that these are the things that I've done, these are the things that I want to do?
No, because I think a lot of things come back to like fundamental sales skills, right? So if you have a salesperson call you and they're saying, I have this pair of shoe. This shoe is pink. This shoe has high heels. You can walk far in these shoes. You're like, okay, so you've just described a shoe. You emailing your boss with a list of the things you've done well, okay, you're just describing a good employee. You're not building a case. The case is the conversation. The case is, here's the value that I've added. You're communicating it in a storytelling way. You're selling that person on who you are and the value you bring to your company.
But what if a person is not good in storytelling, like speaking in front of the like in person?
I think everyone is good at storytelling. I think we just have a really linear view of what good storytelling is.
Because some people might think that, it's easier for me to just write an email rather than to say or confront having that kind of a discussion.
It's uncomfortable, but I think that's because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to deliver things in a certain way. Like we think great communication is you're extroverted, you're loud, you're clear, you're concise, you're never using filler words. Okay, who talks like that? Talk to your boss like a human. Hey, big boss, I've been working on this. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? It can be simple. It can be concise, but your sales pitch needs to be authentic to you. And again, it shouldn't be a surprise. So you shouldn't have to come up with this whole like laundry list of things. You're just telling the story of here's how long I've been here. Here's the value I've added. What do you think? Instead of this like, I have a pink shoe. Do you want to buy it? You're saying, we've been shoe shopping together for a little bit. Do you see the value in me? Like, that's a really different conversation.
So usually what happens is like some of the conversation that I have in like, because we are a very small team and small business. So which is why like sometimes the conversations of these promotions are like obviously in person, but sometimes there are also an email, which I don't really mind at all. Now, like one of the promotional email, like somebody who wanted a promotion and who's going to also listen to this podcast.
Hello.
And he's great, by the way.
Amazing.
He's great and genuinely. So and it was very good structured email that he sent to me. He said that, this is the role that I was hired for. This is what I'm doing right now. And bunch of things parallelly to both each other. That just gave me an idea of like, before even having a conversation, I know exactly what the kind of conversation that I wanted to get into.
Yes.
So that helped me in some way.
That's because you're cool and normal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because you're like a cool boss.
Okay.
I agree. I think generally for anything, giving people context sets a meeting up for success. I think in a lot of old school companies, and more companies are very political, more political than we think they are, sending that email, you're giving that person who's receiving it an opportunity to infer whatever they're going to infer. Oh, you think this job is it's too different for you now? Now you don't like this job? And they could have their backup. So I think you can set context, but I personally say keep it high level unless you have that kind of a relationship with your leader. But, I remember when I went through my last, like in my career promotion cycle, I reached out to my boss and was like, listen, I'm loving this job. It's changed a lot. Do you think we can have a conversation about it? He already had a feel of what the topic was. And then I came in with listen, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we've got. What do you think? And that was what kind of kickstarted the conversation about that promotion.
No, I like that. Okay. Amazing. Now I've got promotion.
You are both hired and promoted.
Oh my God.
We're doing so well.
Like within these two hours, I think I've got hired. I've got promotion.
When are you going to get fired?
Probably just right after this interview.
And what's the last step? Yeah. I'm not that kind of HR. We're fine. That's someone else. Girl, I refuse to fire people.
I was telling you earlier that you have a section on your podcast which says that what would Emily do?
Absolutely.
So what we have done is that we've taken out like I've asked my community as well. I've asked them a question that, what I was telling them that, I'm going to interview you tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So what is one question that you would want me to ask? And they have sent me some questions and I want to read out to you and you answer to them whatever naturally comes to you.
Let's do it.
I'm
ready.
Okay.
WWED.
WWED. Guys, I'm telling you that everybody must watch her podcast. I learned so much, even though I'm not in the market to look for a job, but I was learning so much.
Thank you. I so appreciate that.
Okay. So let's see, where's the
This
first
is so
question?
fun. I love this.
Okay. So the first question that I received was, I get conflicting advice from different people. Someone say Indeed is the best, while some say that Indeed has lost lots of obsolete jobs that never taken down. Some say LinkedIn is the best, while some say it is mostly for networking and not usually best for getting offers. What would you recommend as the best job search platform?
Okay, this is a wonderful question, and there's a lot of misconception. Basically, when a recruiter or a company is posting a job, it's typically coming from their applicant tracking system. So that's the system they're using to collect resumes. That system automatically posts on all the platforms you see. So Indeed, LinkedIn, yada, yada. They're actually all tied and connected to the same thing. So whether like a job is really stale on Indeed or it's really stale on LinkedIn, it's because the company has intentionally kept that posting up. I would say whatever platform you're the most comfortable with is the right platform, except for Google Jobs, because Google Jobs sucks. That's more of like a scraper than a true direct from applicant tracking system. I'm perfectly comfortable with either. If you're noticing that a job is seeming suspicious, it's typically because it's been posted for too long, or it's unposted and reposted quite a bit. That's usually a sign they have no intention of hiring. So focus more on the red flags versus the platform.
Okay, amazing. Now the second question is, how to stand out among competition through your resumes and interviews?
Good question. I'm going to answer the interview one first. The best way, actually, that's a lie. I'm going to give you a 2-for-1. The number one skill that I fundamentally believe is going to be a gap in the next 2 to 3 years in the job market isn't AI. It's not technology. It's actually emotional intelligence. Because with the rise of technology that's doing things for us, it can't feel things and build relationships for us. So really standing out in an interview is showing up and being that strong communicator, whatever that is for you. It's being present. It's having empathy. It's showing you know how to work with technology, but that your core skill is being a person. Because at the end of the day, AI is probably going to change the way we work, not eliminate our jobs. So standing out means showing up and being present and showing those people skills in data on your resume and in how you communicate in interviews.
But I think with the advent of AI, a lot of people are also nervous about how it is going to take away the jobs. And I was reading the recent statistics, which was saying that by 2030, 800 million jobs will be taken by AI.
Yes, it's scary. Here's the thing. None of us have like a crystal ball. So much can happen. I think when it comes to the kinds of jobs AI is going to take, that's where you need to be strategic. Realistically, AI is not taking over your like full recruitment cycle. I'm just using recruitment as an example. AI can't be your end-to-end recruiter, but it is going to get rid of your scheduling roles. It's probably going to get rid of the people who audit all your offer letters, onboarding, etc. So when you think about how you fit in your industry, look at the areas you're starting to see tech play in. So for example, if you're in finance and you're noticing that AI is starting to smart predict what investments make sense, it's starting to adjust your spreadsheets, maybe the technical space isn't the one you should be leaning into. Should you be leaning into how to use AI to make you that much better at your job? And then from a people skills perspective, you now need to become really good at navigating interpersonal relationships. So it is going to eliminate, but if you get ahead of it now, your job might not be the one on the chopping block.
And like you said about emotional intelligence, I think that is something that cannot be replaced
and it's more important now than ever because, in a world where we're leaning on tech to do so much, people are truly going to forget how to play the political game. They're going to forget how to get buy-in, how to build the relationship, how to read a room, right? Like those are things that are slowly going to go away. So having that skill is really going to make you stand out.
Amazing. Okay, the next question. How can someone handle subtle racism in an effective way? Ooh, so this one is a little deep. Okay, for example, I have a friend who works in a sales at a top company. When he doesn't close a deal, his boss often jokes, saying things because of his color, and then he'll say something in a self-deprecating humor as well. Like for maybe he's saying to himself as well. While it is framed as humor, it feels intentional and hurtful at times. It's happened multiple times. How can he address it without risking a job?
First of all, nothing subtle about that, to be honest. And firstly, I'm heartbroken hearing that, and I'm sorry this person is going through that. And you would be shocked if you know how many people are experiencing that same thing. There are two routes you can take these things. I'm a big believer in one over the other. The first is an honest conversation with this person. You have to take in a bunch of different factors, like the psychological safety you have at work, the relationship you have with this person. You also firstly need to have a paper trail. So you need to document what is said, when, and how. Keep that in a Word document. It doesn't mean you're sending it to anyone, but in the event you have this conversation we're about to walk through and you get reprimanded for that, you have a paper trail of evidence of this individual's experience, because that's when you get to say, hey, this is actually discrimination because I'm voicing my needs. Option one is you sit down with this person and you go, I love working with you. You start off with a positive. I love that you and I have such a positive relationship with each other. I want to have a bit of a vulnerable moment. The couple of times I've missed sales targets and some comments and jokes were made about blah, blah, blah. I understand they were coming from a place of joking, but they made me pretty uncomfortable. And then stop talking. That person's response might be, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought that was kind of our thing. I'm so off base, never happening again. It's done and dusted. You get to decide the amount of access this person has to you. Sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes we don't have leaders that are open to feedback. Sometimes you work in a corporate culture where, they're making the joke, but too many people are laughing, right? And there's too much going on. That's where I think it's important for you to talk to your HR business partner. Okay. HR is not your friend, but they're not your enemy either. And if you go in and say, I don't necessarily know if I want to open a case, can I just share this? And can you advise me on how to navigate this situation? Typically what they'll do is say, we're going to take this away. We'll talk to this person. They'll find a resolution. The benefit with HR being in your corner is you're not responsible for navigating these conversations. Right. And in an event, things don't get better, you either get paid, right? Because that's a very real option, or they can support you in that person either leaving your management team or finding a structure that works for you. But either way, don't feel like you need to laugh this off in any capacity.
Yeah, this is a very serious.
Yeah, and it happens I can't even tell you how much this happens.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. And I think it is also done in a certain subtle way that, it doesn't feel like as if somebody is trying to be racist, but they are trying to make it funny and as if everybody's laughing. This is all subtle humor.
And the thing is, I think people forget, because you spend so much time with people at work, right? You spend 40 hours a week with these people. Sometimes people's professional barriers start to fall. And I was speaking about this on a podcast earlier this year where people will make comments about your weight, about your health, about your relationship status. And it's whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't get down like that. But it's because you spend all this time together. And I think some people who mask as good people, their mask starts to fall the more time you spend with them. And I'm sorry, jokes like that aren't funny. It's 2024. If you need racism to be funny,
now.
2025, you're not even funny. Yeah. If you need racism to be funny, there's nothing funny about you other than your IQ, probably. What does that mean?
For this kind of a comment, no, it's
I
not.
stand by it. I stand by it.
Okay, the next one. What can I do when I feel I'm working harder and delivering better results, but someone else seems to be getting all the recognition? Should I go and talk my concerns to the manager or raise the concerns about it?
This happens a lot. I think the biggest misconception when it comes to career growth is that being good at your job is what gets you promoted and noticed. It's not. It's visibility and it's likability. It's this
Visibility and
likability. The ability for you to be well known and well liked in the office is going to be the reason someone says, "Oh, put Emily on that project." They don't know how Emily works. They just know they like talking to Emily.
Yeah.
That is a huge factor in how people grow. The first thing you need to do is that list we talked about earlier today. Create a list of things you're great at so you have data. So that's step number one. Step number two is you need to ask yourself, am I putting myself out there to network at this company? Am I getting put on projects? Am I having empty coffee conversations? So walk around with the office, empty coffee cup, right? And this is great for in person. You mosey around, you pretend you're filling up your coffee, you talk to 2 to 3 people for no more than a minute each. Hey, how was your weekend? Good to see you. I was just going to grab coffee, but I wanted to say hi. You do that 2 or 3 times, once a day, every day you're in the office. It's how you stay top of mind. It's like a little trick to get people to like you. Are you doing those things? If the answer is yes, sit down with your manager and say, hey, I'm doing XYZ, and you give them the list of your accomplishments. I'm really looking for more opportunities to blah, blah, blah. You don't say, I'm noticing I'm not getting recognition. Don't start with the negative. Start with the I want more of
and
not
not
get
throw
feedback.
the other person under the bus.
No, because at the end of the day, this person could be equally good at their job. They could be crap, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. But
don't know.
if you start it with a how can I get there, that's a healthy way to start the conversation. But pay attention to other factors. Like you'd be surprised how many people who get promoted, yes, sometimes they're personality hires, but sometimes they're the CEO's nephew, right?
Yeah,
so like
that's
be
true.
aware of who these people are as well.
Yeah. But do you think that what about the people who are like a little bit introvert and they are the people, I think they struggle with this kind of thing. They might be very good at their job.
Yes.
But they're not good in, having a networking session with someone.
Yeah, I think being noticed doesn't mean being the loudest. And I think extroverts and introverts fundamentally both need to exist in office spaces for them to function. An office full of extroverts is a crazy house. Can't be good.
Yes.
And you have to know what your specific superpower is. And that's different for everyone, regardless of if you're extroverted or introverted. My superpower for sure is I could talk to a brick wall. I have the gift of gab, right? I have some friends who are more introverted and they are the most intentional listeners. And when they speak, it is like a thought I've never had. And they really make me question how I operate. Figure out what your superpower is. So if you are a bit more reserved into yourself, but you're a really good critical thinker, ask to be put on projects where that gets to shine. Ask to be put on the global scale projects. When you chit chat with someone, ask them about a problem they're facing. Hey, I heard your team was working on blah, blah, blah. How did you guys figure that out? Whoa, cool. How did you do it? Figure out what your superpower is and make that the basis of your conversation. It doesn't mean you need to be an office butterfly.
Do you think that body language also plays a very important role in getting promotions?
It is. So I would say perhaps less so in the promotion itself, but I would say in your career overall. So almost 80% of the messages that we send are communicated through our body. First impressions take like less than a second to create, right? And how you communicate, if I walk in to deliver a presentation, or even today, if I walked in and was like, hey, how are you? You'd be like, okay, does this girl know what she's talking about? And I might, but I'm not acting like I do. So giving that body language of I take up space because I deserve it, it works for everybody. So standing tall, showing up dressed for the job you want. Like I know that's old school, but it works. Like showing up composed and like your ideal self radiates that.
In one of your videos, I think you also said that, wearing bright clothes also help you to get promotion. Is it true?
It does. I mean, if you show up in a pink shirt, am I guaranteeing you a 20% salary raise? Yes, I'm kidding now. Of course not. But there's lots of little psychology hacks where if you are someone where like, I can take all the help I can get, wearing bright colors automatically gravitates people's eyes towards us. Different colors mean different things in psychology. So like those things are really helpful. So that coupled with confident communication, confident body language, you being good at your job and you doing, I kid you not, 1 empty coffee cup walk a day, you will be shocked at how much that does for your career.
Let's talk a little bit about body language and the cues that have you heard any of Vanessa Edwards' conversation?
I haven't, no.
Vanessa Edwards is a psychologist. I think she helps people with body language.
Okay, cool.
And she recently, I think she went to a podcast, Stephen Bartlett's podcast,
Okay.
Diary of a CEO. And I've been following her. I've also read her book by the name of Cues.
Okay.
And she talks a lot about body language, like how little cues that you can reveal a lot about your personality. So anything like, what are the 2-3 hacks about the body language, about the way that you dress, about the way that you have a conversation that can help you get recognized in a work culture?
I think I could tell you what works for me and I could tell you what works for someone else. At the end of the day, all that matters is that all of these factors are contributing to your confidence and your perceived confidence. So how confident people perceive you to be is often directly related to how competent they think you are, right? So I could tell you wear bright colors, wear a form-fitting this, and you show up and you're so uncomfortable that you look less confident.
Yeah.
But I would say, as a rule of thumb, wear clothes that are professional, but that make you feel good. When it comes to actual body language tips, and this is where I have such mixed feelings about it, because I also think it's like inherently really ableist, right? Like all of the things that we reward are very easy for folks who are neurotypical, or folks who are diverse in terms of their like neurological kind of like preferences or kind of where they're at. Like direct eye contact isn't comfortable for everybody. But when we look at, hiring data and what people like to see, it's tall posture, it's eye contact, it's smiling, it's speaking slower than you think you have to speak, it's nodding your head, it's talking with your hands. Like all of these things contribute to that perceived confidence, but you also need to master what that means for you based on your comfortability levels. So I honestly would say take an inventory of yourself. Get your friend to videotape you talking to a stranger at a bar. I know that sounds crazy. Don't put the stranger's face in it because that's not cool. And go back and watch your body language. I've had a friend do this and it was disturbing. I was hunched. I was giving gargoyle. It was terrifying. And I watched back and was like, that's not the person I perceive myself to be, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm able to course correct for me specifically.
Amazing. So there was something about that when you were saying, I was just thinking about it, that some of the people, when like they might be extrovert, they are doing all the, they're checking all the boxes, but they don't dress up well in a professional environment. Does that affect their anything in the work culture?
I would say yes, with an asterisk. Again, say it with me, everyone. Depends on the industry. In banking, you won't even get access to those opportunities if you're not showing up in your business formal attire. Okay. In tech, I've seen the smartest people I know wear flip-flops. And I'm like, great, I love this for you. So it is industry specific. I think the notion of professionalism varies based on what professionalism means to you in your specific industry.
Interesting. Okay, we are pretty much towards the end of this conversation, and I've had a ball today.
Me too. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think now everybody should be prepared for 2025, and like whether they're finding a job, they're getting a promotion. I think after this conversation, I can find a job.
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Will you hire me?
Oh, 100%. You start Monday.
Oh, it's a Christmas holidays. Can we do it in January?
We'll negotiate. So you're negotiating, and look how you left some silence, guys. It's working. It's working. The chicks are working.
Okay, so my last question to you is that what would you say to young Emily who is 20 years old? What advice would you like to give it to her?
Oh my gosh, what a good question. Oh my God, there's so much. First of all, start wearing sunscreen. But I'll leave that to the side. I think other than sunscreen, I think that the best piece of advice I got later in life is what I wish I heard sooner, which is from my dad, shout out to Mike Durham, be scared and do it anyways. I think I waited to feel prepared to do a lot of things. I waited until I felt ready to ask for a raise, until I felt ready to take the next job. And I wasted so much of my early career shrinking myself to fit into spaces I had outgrown. And now I think whenever I'm scared of something, it's an automatic sign that I'm like, yeah, that's next on my to-do list. Like I have to do that. So I think be scared and do it anyways.
Be scared and do it anyways.
Absolutely.
This is an amazing way to end the podcast.
Oh, what a good time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. You have provided a lot of value to everyone. And I want everybody to watch. If you are watching it till this point, leave a comment and tell me when you want Emily to come next to this podcast.
I love that. This is very Purple Squirrel of us.
This is very Purple.
This is very Purple Squirrel of us. I would love to be back. We could gab forever.
Yes. There's so much to unwrap over here. And I think whatever we have done today, it's like really, I'm blown away.
Thank you.
I'm sure every one of you are also, right? So crazy.
Oh,
Thank
so
you,
much
Emily.
Fun. Thank you.
Lovely
what a ball.
Amazing.
Amazing. Thank you. And happy job hunting, y'all. Truly.
Yeah, take care. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was so fun.
It was good. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you're not subscribed yet, then click right now and subscribe, because every week I'm going to post a video or a podcast, and it is going to be about marketing, content creation, and business. And if you want to check out some other videos and interviews, then here are some of my recommendations for you.